Peace and blessings, family. Today we just going to build on making the transition from organized religion to spirituality, if you will, or faith, as some people call it. Basically, that journey is an individual journey that you have to take upon yourself. Uh, from me being in the ministry for over 35 years now, it's been a lot of good, a lot of bad. Struggle continues, but I weathered the storms. I'm still here, and I still give praise to Allah who came the person of Master Muhammad and his first, last, and only messenger, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. One of the things that confused me when I was in my early stages of growth and spiritual development was religion, because I thought that religions was like your religion had to be true and everybody else's religion had to be false. So it would put Muslim against Christian, Christians against Jews, Jews against atheists, Muslims against Muslims, Christians against Catholics, Catholics against Roman Catholics, 5% against Afrocentric, Hebrew Israelites. Now, I mean, it was just divide and conquer. But then when I actually started studying the different spiritual systems, the different faiths, I seen a common thread, if you will. And then when I start listen, listening more carefully, not just hearing, but listening to the different spiritual guides. I'm not just talking about the prophets like Abraham and Moses and David and Solomon and Jesus and Muhammad and so forth. But I'm speaking of like just family members, friends, uh, different ministers, ministers in the nation, ministers outside the nations, reverends, rabbis, gurus, sheikhs, whatever, imams. You know what I mean? They all had something of value. I learned from all of them, some more than others. Some was over my head, so I couldn't really comprehend. Sometimes it was a language barrier. Sometimes it was a cultural thing, an economic thing, a social political thing. But overall, I learned a lot from different people. So I would recommend that a person study everything, as they say. I mean, and then there's the technique. You know, different teachers have different styles or different mythologies or methods, schools of thoughts that they utilize to convey that message. I'm more of a, if this was like a kung fu movie, I would be like drunken style. I mean, they see the old man, he's not, suited and booted. He's not clean shaved. He's not neat. He's not formal. You know what I mean? He's not professional. You know what I mean? He's not giving a professional presentation. You know what I mean? They see him, he at the bar drinking rice wine. He drunk. You know what I mean? But he could fight his ass off. I mean, so the thing is, it's like some people don't understand that style. Some people ain't ready for that style. You know what I mean? But the thing is that when you go against that mythology or go against that drunken style, you see that he can hold his own. You know what I mean? And it's a science in that. You know what I mean? Everything is just simply not for everybody. But I wanted to share with you some of the things that I wish someone would have explained to me when I was a novice or a baby in my spiritual growth and development. One thing that I learned that was counterintuitive to what I was doing was it dawned on me God didn't have a religion. That was like, because when you start studying these scriptures, I mean, you have preconceived notions, preconceived ideas, things that I grew up with. I mean, ever since a little kid, things I seen on TV, things I heard on the radio, read in magazines and books and newspapers, and heard from different people, family and friends, right or wrong. But overall, it started dawning on you like, hold up, when you carefully read this Bible gives some valuable jewels. When you carefully read this Quran, it gives valuable jewels. The Torah gives valuable jewels. And you have to as they say, empty your cup in order to properly fill it up. And the messenger explained to us, he said, you don't have to condemn a dirty glass. Just put a clean glass up next to it. You know what I mean? So all you got to do is show and prove. You know what I mean? Not just show and say. So my thing always been like, I don't know anything. I never in my life had followers. You know what I mean? Growing up, any of my friends that followed me usually got in trouble. And my don't be following. They, you know, they gonna get you locked up. They gonna get you, which was right. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have no proper guidance. You know what I mean? But when you experience the street life, the ghetto life, the underground, if you will. Now, I mean, come from a broken home, a broken community, a broken nation, a broken world, a broken universe covering 238 continuous 640 quadrillion miles. You get that experience, and that experience become something of your character. It strengthens you. You know what I mean? You're able to endure. You know, so one of the things that I learned about organized religion when I read these actual scriptures, I noticed that Moses wasn't actually in the synagogue. You know, Jesus wasn't actually teaching in the church. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all the prophets, thoughts of peace, nothing spooky with me at all. He wasn't actually in the masjid, but they actually taught the people that the people were the synagogue or the temple or the church or the school or the mosque or the masjid or what have you. And when I start looking at that, I noticed that the Lamb was teaching that himself. He explained to us that we would be a temple ourselves. He explained to us that Islam is not a religion. He said Islam is the nature of our own being. He explained to us the sun is Islam, the moon is Islam, the star is Islam. Everything submits to the will of Allah, not in a spooky sense, but in his theology and cosmology and theosophy, his thing was that everything submits to universal law. It's all mathematics. That's all he considered Islam to be, mathematics. He said mathematics is Islam and Islam is mathematics. So those things was like a deeper teaching for me. You know what I mean? Because, you know, you throw something in the air, it's going to fall. It's going to submit to the law of gravity because there's universal laws. Now, I mean, you know, we're born, we're going to die. Now, I mean, object in motion, cause and effect. Our ancestors gave us various laws, the law of causations, the pendulum. All those things are mathematically sound and practical. Now, I mean, so when we look at religion, you know what I mean, we sometimes forget the cultural part of the religion. And some people look at religion as a spooky text with a spooky God, holy people. And when you look at it scientifically, analytically, and step back and analyze the data, and then you process it properly for information, you find that you get actual facts that God doesn't have a religion. You know what I mean? And, you know, the Quran tells us you could call Allah by the name of Rahman, you could call him by the name Rahim, or whatever, you know, name or nomenclature you may choose, as long as it's a positive or a good name. There's things like that's all good. You know what I mean? So I don't argue over Yahweh and Jesus and Allah. I don't argue Moses and Jesus. My thing is, I heard the Honorable Minister Farrakhan explain one time, all the prophets of God taught the same thing, just in a different way. That's a succinct but practical analysis of what's really happening here. You know what I mean? So when you look at these prophets, and I'll say as arrived in 1974, the Lamb explained to us that every 2,000 years a major prophet is born. So his concept of theology, or his concept of the scriptures, was that it didn't fall out the sky. But his thing was, you know, when the Savior asked him, you know, who made the Holy Quran, the Bible, he explained that the Holy Quran, the Bible, is made by the original people, who is Allah. He explained to us in 1974 in his last book, I'll say as a he said Allah is all of us, but we have a supreme Allah, or we have one that sees and hears that which we can't see and hear. That is He. He's rooted in all of us. So he explained that universally, genetically, politically, psychologically, culturally, atomically, we're all interrelated. We're all linked. Now, I mean, that's the ahad or the oneness of Allah. Now, I mean, so it does not take away from the creator. Like the Sunni scholars, that thing is like, you know, who Allah, he the God is ahad. He's one, and we agree with that, but we don't look at it in a spooky sense. Now, I mean, but it's like a miscommunication when they hear about Master Muhammad. When we say Allah came in the person of Master Muhammad, we're not saying Master Muhammad came in the person of the law. The Savior taught us a deep, practical, natural, spiritual way of life. And in that concept, he taught us to see God in the mirror. Now, when we carefully study the scriptures, my Christian brothers were like, oh, no, this, that. Jesus' thing was like, look, greater works than these will you do. But we seem to forget that part and how to, bring that about. Now, I mean, the book of Psalms, chapter 82, verse 6 explains to us that I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High God. Now, I mean, that's what the argument with Jesus' teachings really was about. Our ancient people in Kemet or Egypt, they was like gods and goddesses, Usar, Set, Isis as they know them. Now, I mean, Heru, Horus. Now, I mean, these were not mystery gods. And that concept of the reality of God, it all comes back to the original man. But a lot of people confuse the man with the mind. In practical terms, in science, they teach that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. In scriptures, our Sunni brothers, for example, they teach that of the 99 attributes of the law, one is al-Khaliq, the creator. We don't deny that. There's only one creator of all creation. That's mathematics. What we dispute is the interpretation of how that creator operates and what that creator is. Why we say Hua or He the God and not Ru or the spirit or spook God. We don't look at God as a ghost. I mean, we don't see little uh, magical things happening in the universe. It's not luck and chance, but everything is mathematics, cause and effect, actions and reactions. So we look at it in a more practical way. And in our nomenclature, we look at energy or the creator as being synonymous with what we call the mind of the original man. The mind can't be seen. The brain can be seen. You take a baby, the brain is born with a 7.5 ounce brain, 14 billion brain cells. Each brain cell generates a power equal to 1/70,000th of a volt of electricity. Our thoughts travel 24 billion miles per second. So we understand the biological chemistry, the mathematics of it. But when it comes to the mind, you can't see the mind. The mind is not limited by time nor space. The mind has no birth record, has no death date. The mind is infinite. And this is what we think people are talking about when they talk about the one God or the creator. You know what I mean? This is what we think the scientists are talking about when they talk about the energy or the first cause, if you will. You know what I mean? It all comes together in the spiritual teaching. But in organized religion, we get caught up on the languages, the rituals. Should I have my bow tie on? Should I have my kufi on? Should I have a beard? Should I be clean shaven? Should I sit over here? Should I point my finger? What have you? I mean, those things have their significance and they have their importance because we build cultures. Now, I mean, we use knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, but we grow in belief. Now, I mean, and as time moves on, we supposed to spiritually evolve. So, in the life-giving teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I noticed that he did not interpret his teachings to be the old Islam, or what they say in Arabic as al-Arik Islam, the old Islam. His thing was it's going to be al-Jadi Islam, or what he called in English the new Islam. And he explained to us that the old Islam, al-Arik Islam, would oppose the ushering in of the new Islam, or al-Jadi Islam. And in 2021, August, we see that happening today. There are people that fear the rise of the new Islam because there's a lot of money in organized religion. There's a lot of money being made in those rituals. Now, I mean, not to try to knock down any particular faith, but when you think about it, you know, we live in a capitalist system. Now, I mean, so when you go to church or to the temple or to the mosque or to the masjid or to the school or whatever, now I mean, you go to college or whatever, those things are generating income for that spiritual system. That's their mythology. That's how they're able to, whether it's tithing, uh, sadaqah, zakat, charity, whatever you want to call it. Now, I mean, the people do rituals. Like if you sacrifice an animal in your particular faith, if you travel to another country, if you have rituals where you do various things, all those things generate income. Now, I mean, so when someone comes and start teaching you about spirituality or how to be a self-believer, there are some people, not all people, just a few, the 10%ers, the rich, slave makers of the poor, they don't want that kind of teaching. They don't like that kind of teaching because you hurting their pockets. You know what I mean? But the people need to understand that it's about them. They need to see that God or that goddess in the mirror. And that's difficult for a lot of people to do. And I mean, for a lot of people to even believe, but I think that social media is changing the game, if you will. Now, I mean, people during this era of COVID-19, they shut down a lot of religious institutions, so people couldn't congregate like they normally would. So it made people adapt or die off. That's just the law of nature. The first law of nature is self-preservation. And we have to understand the importance of our individual spirituality compared to our organized religion. So I enjoy reading the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, the Septuagint, the Book of Life, or the so-called Book of the Dead, whatever. I mean, I learn from anything. I learn from cartoons. I mean, so I could watch something real serious, something positive, and learn from that. I could listen to a rap song. I could listen to an R&B song. I could watch a movie and still learn from that too. It's about taking the best parts. Now, I mean, it's like a crane. When a crane builds, I mean, it has that wrecking ball. It's able to pick up what it's going to build with. It's able to knock down the old. It's able to build and destroy, as we say. Now, I mean, representing the mathematics of infinity. So we want you to understand that it's not a sin, as you would put it, to question organized religion. You're not questioning your faith. You know what I mean? What you're doing is you're growing spiritually. You're learning more. And the Lamb explained to us that knowledge is to listen, know, and observe. Knowledge is just your foundation. Wisdom is to make your knowledge known, symbolizing the woman. Understanding is a picture one makes in his or her mind based on knowledge. So the scriptures teach us to get knowledge, to get wisdom, but with all of our gettings, to get understanding. The Quran teaches the same thing, just in a different way. Now, I mean, the Quran teaches Alif Lam Mim. Now, I mean, Allah is the best knower. Now, I mean, so we want Alim, we want knowledge, but we also want Hakim. We want wisdom. We also want that understanding. We want that Alif. So it all comes together mathematically. So we're going to be building in the cipher. I want you to support this channel by making sure that you subscribe and like so that we can get more videos out to you. We want you to understand that, of course, COINTELPRO is going to try to sabotage these videos because they don't want you to know you. They don't want you to become a self-believer. But the struggle continues. Peace and blessings, family. I'm your brother in the struggle for peace, truth, freedom, justice, and equality.